Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Modern Woodcarver Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and today we have a special episode. Today I'm joined by Andrew Gable. Andrew is a fantastic carver and sculptor. He does amazing work, but he doesn't do what we are normally used to. He doesn't carve wood, he predominantly carves stone. I believe it's soapstone, but could be other varieties. I'm looking forward to getting to learn more about this process, more about what he does, and yeah, just broaden our horizons in the carving world. So, Andrew, I appreciate you taking the time to come on, and I'm glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I've tried my hand at carving stone in the past, and it is not fun for me. It is tough
W
and dirty and dusty, and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's the kind of thing, like, I never really planned to get into it, like, it wasn't even on my radar at all, um, and it just kinda opened up, like, an opportunity to do some stone carving, and it was really helpful because I basically had someone show me the entire process, which was very crucial, I think, for getting started in things. Because, like, I don't know, like, I've been wanting to carve wood too for years, but because I just didn't have that how to go from, point A to point B, I never did it. I kind of put it off. So when I got started in stone carving, someone kind of just showed me the process and then away I went.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really important to have someone kind of help you out along the way in the beginning,
Yeah.
especially to bounce ideas or ask questions. Um, not a lot of us in the carving world have that. We've either flocked to YouTube or read books and stuff like that. That's pretty much how I learned. I didn't really have anyone to explain things to me along the way. So
Yeah.
it's nice that you had that.
Yeah. I mean, it's YouTube is great. And, I think for me, I know I could probably be more, um, willing to sort of ask people directly, like, "Hey, can you explain the whole process to me, please?" Not that it's gonna be easy, but, like, it's an involved thing, and I think it was really helpful just going maybe taking a workshop might be a good way to get introduced to something like that and just have someone show you, like, the process, the steps, because there is some technical aspects to it, right? Like, figuring out the right tools and how to finish the piece and things like that, but yeah, you're right, I do carve soapstone and, primarily right now, soapstone and marble. I actually started with marble, which is a lot harder, and worked with a lot of the harder stones for a few years before moving into soapstone. Um, and then kind of focused on that over the years and kind of alternating between soapstone and alabaster and marble. So, but in terms of the process, like, I'm working on my first wood carving right now, and the process is very
Awesome.
similar, but the thing is with stone carving, I was taught, like, rotary tools, so with a grinder, with a Dremel, um, and I do use, like, an air chisel,
Hmm.
occasionally, but it's primarily, like, the rotary tools, and so I figured, like, if I'm doing that, I could probably just transfer that to wood just to get started, um, until I start getting comfortable and pulling in more tools, and knives and whatever, gouges, I don't even know, right? Like, um,
Yeah.
but I know that there's I feel like in this carving that I'm doing now, there's moments where I'm like, "Oh, I could use probably a knife for this, and it would be a lot better than trying to, like, use this other rotary tool," but, um, the skills were somewhat transferable to go from the soapstone and do the carving because I do the wood carving because I did the rotary stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of that is transferable, especially the overall shapes and dimensions of things. Like you already have that knowledge of shaping it to where it needs to be. But there would be a big learning curve on the material, because I'm not quite sure about stone. Like I said, I've worked with it a little bit, but I would imagine that you can carve stone any which way. You don't have to worry about grain direction or, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe there's like something in the stone. If you hit it a certain way, it might break off a huge chunk. But in wood, if you go against the grain, you can rip out a big chunk of something that you didn't want to remove, and your carving's not going to look like how you intended.
Yeah, I have noticed the wood does pull me around a little bit more with the tools,
Hmm.
like, the stone doesn't really do that, but, um, you can also get, I feel like, a sharper edge with wood, like, more
Yeah,
detail. There's sorry, I'm doing this there's mosquitoes in my house here, so I'm, like, batting them away.
that's
Um,
that's all good.
but, like, there's a few things I noticed already where I'm like, "Oh, I wouldn't do that with stone," because you have to think a lot about, like, I think a lot about how I'm gonna ship the piece when it's done.
Hmm.
And that's just, like, over the years of having to ship these pieces and crossing your fingers and hoping that they arrive where they're supposed to. So you don't really wanna have things sticking out that could potentially break off, during the shipping process. So there is their differences in in the actual carving, but I think you hit on something that I feel is very, very true and is just so critical, in carving and in art. It has nothing to do with wood carving or stone carving, but when I started, stone carving, I had already been painting for 15 years. Like, I wanted to be an artist. I went to art school. I was gonna be a painter, and I would, draw all the time, drawing, 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 life drawing, like, drawing from imagination, drawing from photos, and so by the time I started carving, even though I didn't have any experience, um, I kind of felt like, you know, maybe I'll tell the story how I got started, but, the point I'm making is that the form, the ability to sort of use a reference and transfer that into, like, make it look like a bear, right? That I feel like I developed with painting and drawing, and I could do that already. And I feel like that skill is so important. And in some ways, I feel like people, they say, "Oh, well, how did you do this?" How did you get it to look like that? Or what should I do? Do you got any tips? And I always think, well, just get a sketchbook and just start drawing. Like, you have to, not that you have to get good at drawing, but it translates. That ability to um transfer a reference onto whether it's a piece of paper or a canvas or wood or whatever, that's essentially the process that I'm doing, whether it's stone or wood. It's just
Hmm.
different tools. And, I feel like the really, really excellent artists out there, the ones that when I look at their work, I'm kind of like, you know, I kind of think to myself, "How did you do that?" I think that's for me, that's that's the testament of when I find something that's really good. I think, "How did they do that?" And I feel like some of the artists out there, they have that skill and that ability, that strong, you can call it drawing, but it's that
Hmm.
ability to transfer like a reference, or some image or something onto your whatever it is you're carving or you're painting or whatever. So yeah, drawing skills.
Yeah, I agree. I think drawing definitely helps give you a leg up in a lot of these carvings. I don't. It's not 100% necessary. I mean, there's some fantastic sculptors and carvers that can't draw a stick figure, but they do have a way of creating their reference lines and cutting to those lines and their own methodical way of doing it that just really helps them achieve these beautiful pieces. But yeah, when you are able to draw or use some other artistic ability to help your art, um, it can easily make a huge difference in the outcome.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, I'm calling it drawing, but really ultimately it is just that ability to transfer your vision onto
Yeah.
your piece, whether no matter how you do it. And I think you're right. Like, some artists have really specific ways of doing things that just seem to work really well, and they've got it really dialed in. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Like I'm two of my most favorite um sculptors out there, and it's no secret, I say it often. There's BM Sculptures, Blake, and there's Jonas Olson. Both of those are you familiar? I'm sure you're familiar with both of them. Um,
I think so. I'd have to, not the second one, although when you say that, I have these images. Does he do wildlife stuff?
he does, yeah, he does very whimsical wildlife type um, sculptures. He
Yeah,
he
like
carves only in wood.
yeah,
Um, there'll be foxes with flowing elements to them, and these really beautiful details engraved in them. He's
yeah,
so it's funny because I mentioned both of those. I'm a big fan of them, both of them. Now Blake, I don't know if Blake can draw from
right,
BM Sculptures. I
right,
know he gets reference sketches to rough out the general shape.
yeah,
I know he gets them from someone else um, to draw those reference lines. Now, on the other hand, you have Jonas, who is a fantastic artist. I
yeah.
mean, his hand drawings blow me away
I've
every
seen
time I
them.
see
I've
them.
seen them. When I saw those, I was
Yeah,
like, "What the? These are like they're incredible." Yeah,
they're so good, and his ability to execute his hand drawn vision into the final sculpted piece is absolutely incredible to me.
yeah,
I mean, there's times when he has to tweak it, and I understand that because the wood or there's a knot or something pops up while he's carving it, so he makes those adjustments. But he is really good at executing his original concept. Um, so there's two prime examples. Like they're both amazing sculptors and amazing artists. Um, I could be wrong. Blake could be a fantastic artist and drawer, sketcher, but I don't think I've seen anything hand drawn by him.
well, I think
But they
you,
both can produce really
yeah,
high quality sculptures.
well, I think you hit something really important too. The whole artistic and creative process. The whole point of it is it's your journey, and everyone
So-
can bring what they bring to the table. No one else can do that because it's them. And um, like, yeah, I think that's just critical and so important to be aware of. And I love it personally. Like, you just see so many different ways that artists are developing their own process of how they do it. And that's the beauty of it, is everyone's got their own way to do it, and that's how it should be.
Absolutely. It's a very
Yeah,
personal thing.
it is. Yeah,
It's their style and their technique and their method, just how it works for all of us individually. Um, and it's great that we have these platforms like podcasts and YouTube and TikTok and all of these whatever you want to wherever you view it on, because there's so many times when I see these artists create these amazing pieces, you included. Like I see your work and it inspires me, and I can pick up these little nuggets of how something is done that I would have never thought about, and I can now start to incorporate it into my own style and maybe test it out, and maybe if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But
yeah,
there's been plenty of times when I see things and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Let me give it a shot. And some of them stick, and it's just an eye-opening thing. Like
hmm,
there's been plenty of times I've picked something up and I'm just like, wow, that's really cool. I didn't think of it. And then I try it and I made a world of difference in what I was doing.
yeah,
And it's just great to have these things to be able to find those.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, for the people who don't know you, you carve mostly bears, and they're I'm gonna call them hyper realistic
Okay.
because they are incredible. I mean, I'm a big fan. I love bears. I want to do bear carving similar to what you do, and I've been struggling. I've made plenty of attempts, and I just can't get them down right. Um, so maybe you can give me some tips later
Well,
on. But
yeah,
yeah, what is it about the bear that just speaks to you? Like, why
that's
is that your main?
yeah, that's a great question. Before I answer, I'm just going to grab something right here. Just right here.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, this is my very first bear carving. It looks like a pig. This is carved out of marble. The foot's broken off. I didn't know what I was doing over here, but I went for it. So this is my very first carving, and I tell you what, it took a while. It took a few to get started getting the hang of it. Um, and yeah, so the bears. In terms of the bears, that's an interesting question because I would say so. When I got started, I basically met. Uh, the story is I'd done painting for like, this is going to be a long answer. I had
All
done
good.
painting um, for about 10 years. And, you know, I'd sold a few pieces, but I was, I was coming at it from the mindset that, you know, not necessarily money is the root of all evil, but um, I was an artist and I didn't want anything to do with money. And, you know, I was a rebel and I was in art school and I was a painter and all this. And, you know, maybe because I didn't want anything to do with money, I never sold any work.
Yeah.
But as I got older and I matured and I actually became really interested in sales and learning about how to sell your work and really interested in, okay, well, maybe I could treat this more as a business. And what happened was I actually let it go for like about a year or 2 years. I thought I'm not going to do art in my life. And I never thought I would reach that point because I wanted to be an artist ever since I was about 16 or 17. And that was my total focus. Um, and then I was in Squamish, BC, and went to Starbucks because I was working with my brother. We were doing stone masonry. It was just a side job, and I was looking through the classified ads and for some extra monies, things I could do. And I came across this ad that said looking for stone carvers, no experience necessary. And I was like, kind of had to do a double take. I'm like, what is this? And I read about it, and there was a gallery in Whistler, which was about an hour away from where I was, and they were looking for artists to come and carve. And I was, you know, it was a kind of a vague ad, and I was like, well, I'm going to go and see what this is all about. So I went down there. There was about 60 other people, and we all applied, and they started with 5 artists. And for me, it was like just the glove, like perfect fit. Like
Hmm.
everything I'd done up to that point was just so seamless. And it's interesting how life works in that way sometimes because I didn't ever think about carving. I wasn't going to be although my favorite artist in school was Michelangelo, one of them anyways, who was a sculptor. I loved his sculptures, but I never thought about that. That wasn't my vision of myself as an artist. And I ended up going to this gallery um, and the it was in Whistler, and the theme of the gallery was like wildlife. And when I went to art school, you know, wildlife work was almost looked down on. Like it wasn't. There was just like it's not like figurative art, which is like that's the kind of art you want to be doing, or you want to be doing abstract or something.
Hmm.
Um, so you know, I had to sort of walk through a lot of, I guess you could call it programming that I got in art school about what's art and what's not and what's good and what's bad and all that nonsense essentially, because we're just here creating stuff like um and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for this and I'm going to just try this. And the gallery owner wanted bears, and he wanted bears with fish in their mouth, and he wanted wildlife, but bears were the big seller. And so in a way, it was very much market driven. And I was like, okay, well, let me try this out. Like, let me start carving some bears and give myself to this fully. And let's see my spin on it. Let's see what I can do. So it wasn't like I was passionate about bears per se. I did grow up out in the country. which is kind of back where I moved back to now. I grew up out in nature, so I was always surrounded with nature and animals and wildlife. That was a very normal part of my upbringing. So I think there was a connection there already. Um, when I was a kid, the first thing I started drawing was like wildlife, like eagles and bears and all this stuff. So I'm kind of went back to that. Here I am. I was 31 or 32 when I started carving, and so I started carving these bears, and I carved a couple that were pretty gnarly that didn't make it to the gallery. And the first one, I got into the gallery and ended up selling it, and then I did another one and sold it. And so it was this interesting process of like, it's like, well, maybe I wanted to do one thing, but the world wanted something else. And it was like really easy for me to do the bears because I would do them and they would sell. I would get the money
Hmm.
and I would reinvest it back into that process. And so then I have this creative process going, and it's part me making that decision to go for that and just be like, I'm going to go for it, see what happens. I've always wanted to be an artist, right? Um, so if this is the opportunity, I'm going to just give it a shot and see what happens. So for the last decade, uh, bears have been kind of the foundation of the business that I've built or the art that I've been able to do. So that's
Hmm.
why I do so many bears. It's very much market driven. And
And
it's interesting because I wrestle with that idea of, well, you can't be, you should do what you want, and you got to be more creative, and you can't just do what the market says. And um, but when you have a family that you want to feed, and you find yourself actually making a living as an artist, um, it's like these these ideas of the completely free artist that I maybe held in art school, they don't sort of stand that test of time. There's like other practical things that come into play. Meanwhile, I get to make a living as an artist, and I get to spend my time being creative, and it is an extremely creative process that I'm, getting to do. So, um, and then I've found, things that I enjoy about carving bears, right? And things that I enjoy about carving wildlife. So yeah, that's kind of part of the answer. And I think you hear a lot of artists sometimes say, paint what you love. And I didn't necessarily do that from the beginning. I loved making art. And it was like, well,
hmm.
whether I'm painting this or drawing this or carving this, the point is I want to be making art. That's what I love doing. So the subject is almost secondary to the the process of actually getting to create art. And yeah, so it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I it's got to be a little bit of a dilemma too. I mean, you want to be able to create the art that you want, but also at the same time feed your family. I mean, I would choose making the money over following that, what you want to make as well ultimately. And it kind of sucks, but you got to do what you got to do to keep the business going and keep your livelihood going as well.
Well,
But
yeah, I want to say too, I have over the years, I will take time and I will say, okay, I'm going to do some stuff just for me. I'm going to do some
oh yeah,
painting. Like
absolutely.
my first passion was ultimately painting. And so I've taken moments in time to actually just sit and paint. And what I found was I reached these moments where I'm frustrated, and I'm like, this is not even what I want to do. And like, it's like the process of carving the bears and versus carving what I apparently want to do. It's
Yeah.
almost the same thing. And it's like, I'll experiment. I'll be like, okay, well, what if I just let go of all that stuff and just do something just for me? And then I'll do something just for me. And then I'll observe that experience and be like, okay, was that just for me? Like yeah,
Yeah.
it's the life of a creative person and an artist and a human, right? Like, um, I don't think we're all just out here kind of doing our best. And I think that I I I don't think there's really, I don't want to say there's any difference, but if you find you're making art that is exactly what you want to do and it's working and you're making money, or you're not making money but you're satisfied, then perfect. That's where you want to be.
Yeah,
If you have a business and maybe the art isn't exactly what you envisioned for yourself, um, but you have this other thing that's sort of got a life of its own and you're satisfied, then that's what you should be doing too. Like, you know what I mean? It's
exactly.
multi-dimensional question and answer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a multitude of things that have to come into play for all that stuff. And I sell my work as well. I'm not just a carver. I do woodworking as, on top of it. And I make cutting boards and boxes, and I turn bowls and things like that, small furniture. And over the years, I've done a lot of these craft shows where I'll set up shop and I'll sell my work. And the bread and butter of these shows are cutting boards. And
Yeah,
I've made countless cutting boards, thousand plus easily. And I have just grown to dislike making cutting boards at this point. They're boring. I occasionally I'll make them and I'm enjoying the process because I like doing the woodworking and stuff, but they have no meaning to me anymore. It's not like when I made my first end grain cutting board and I was like, wow, I did this and wow, I'm really proud of it. Now I can bang them out and I'm just like, okay, you know, slap a
yeah,
price tag on it. I hope it sells.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I can definitely understand where you're coming from. And then there's moments when I will work on a project and I'm really, really into it and really invested and I'm enjoying the entirety of the process. And I was like, this is what it's all about. Like, this is where,
yeah,
you know, like I feel that happy moment and, um, I'll try to sell it
yeah,
sometimes, but
yeah,
it's harder to put a price tag on those projects because there's more sentiment attached to them in the moment, at least.
yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like part of my process too is also giving myself the foundation, the financial foundation to be able to veer off and do these experiments or these projects that maybe they're not maybe as marketable as something like the wildlife pieces, but they're for me and they're feeding my soul. And yeah, I think that naturally I always kind of veer off and experiment with that kind of thing. Because yeah, when you're carving the same thing over and over, as much as although when you do it, it is very different. Like you can never really repeat the process. It's every stone is different. I'm sure the same with the wood, right? It's a natural material. It's um, so there's that dimension too, which keeps things interesting. But I don't know. It's also like at some point too, if it's your career or your job, then I just have to do it sometimes, and I'm bored. Like I'm making art, but I'm bored. It's like I'm working, you know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would rather be kind of doing that than maybe a different job that doesn't have that creativity or um, that part of me that I've always kind of wanted to do and be, which is an artist attached to it. So yeah, I'm willing to walk through some boredom.
Yeah. I mean, anything you do, there's going to be some boredom. You do it long
Yeah,
enough, but that's really cool. I mean, I love your work. Like I said, I've been a fan for a number of years now, and I've seen all your videos, your shorts, and wherever they pop up, and I always
yeah.
stop and I watch it.
Oh,
I
awesome.
also just I love the scenery that you have in your videos as well because you are in a pretty rural area where there's
Yeah,
mountain ranges and
yeah,
rivers and stuff like that. Um, so it's really cool to see um, and just witness.
yeah.
And
I'm trying to lean into that a little more because like when I met my my partner, my wife, we met. Basically, we started dating the day I started carving. So she's been with me the whole journey. Kind of when we got together, I was just getting into the gallery and figuring that thing out. And we were, we talked about we want to get a piece of property someday and like live out closer to nature. Um, for a while, I was living in Whistler and Squamish, which is very beautiful, but it's also we were just sort of in the I don't know the suburbs or just renting apartments and stuff. Um, and I ultimately wanted to get onto a piece of property and have my own carving studio. And so last year or a couple years ago, we ended up moving back to Prince George, BC, where I grew up, where I started my creative journey because, I grew up out on 5 acres and there was not a lot to do. You're out in the middle of the forest. And so I did a lot of drawing and I had a lot, it was very quiet out here and you just have that time to reflect. And for me, that sort of cultivated a really creative attitude, I guess. Um, and I was able to start creating art, or I just did start creating art. And so I was always curious about getting back to this area and just like kind of getting back out closer to nature as sort of a muse, I guess. Um, as the type of environment that I find suits me for creativity. Other people might thrive. I feel like my wife is more of a city girl. She might, be more creative in the city. But I like it out here and it's very quiet and there's trees and the birds are really loud and I love that. And we've got moose and deer running through our yard and things like that. And that's what I wanted for my kids and that's what I wanted for myself. So in terms of um, my whole creative experience, I kind of wanted that to be an aspect of it, especially just to complement the wildlife theme of what I'm doing. Yeah,
Yeah, it definitely must be a pretty big inspiration to have that wildlife setting and creating wildlife art. Um, Definitely is goes hand in hand. And I feel like I live in a city.
yeah,
The wildlife that I see around here is not what you really kind of want to see. But yeah, so I think sometimes it's a little bit harder for me to get that inspiration because I'm not seeing it in person. I have to view it online or Instagram or whatever. So I would imagine if I saw a moose walk by my house, it would definitely trigger more of an inspiration aspect to it. Um, so
yeah,
yeah, I don't, I really want to get into that realm of carving animals, realistic animals, specifically bears, and I really like owls. So those are like my top two that I really kind of want to dive into, and I know you do both of those. I actually have a bear here that I attempted and gave up on. I was carving it out of basswood,
all
and
right. Why did you give up on it? It's still got a ways to go. That's a great
so
start.
what stopped me is I don't know if you can see it, but his leg here,
Yeah.
when I roughed it out on the bandsaw, it was really caved inward. So it kind of like when I'm looking at it, it looks like very
Yeah.
sloped in and not proportionate. And as you're well aware of, you started carving in wood, this part of his face is all end grain.
Okay.
So it's really difficult to carve.
I see.
So if I were to go in with the knife this way, a big chunk of it can split off. So I just kind of didn't know where to go with it. And I put it down and then, once you put something down in a way for a while, you forget about it and you will move on to the next thing. But maybe I'll give it another
I
shot.
feel like you got a good start
Um,
on it. Maybe if you come back to it, yeah, I feel like you've got the first part down. I can't, it's hard to see from here the angle of the
yeah,
leg, but it looks okay. It looks all right. It
I'll
looks like you got,
send you some pictures and you
okay.
you can You can definitely judge. But yeah, I wanted to get like a good shape. I really like those fat chubby bears.
Yeah.
There's actually another carver that I've seen on Instagram. Stone bear carving, I believe it
Yep.
is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I know
yeah,
his work.
and he does these very fat chubby bears with like the wrinkles and the folds in each eye. And I
Yeah.
just love that
He's got
look.
beautiful work.
And yeah, and the eyes he does they're not realistic. So to me, they seemed more achievable
Yeah.
to do because you do the realism face with
I
the
kind of
eyes
do.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
the snout and everything. So he kind of, I don't know, like it is realistic, but they're very like heavily folded, like the
Um,
eyelids.
yeah. I know who you're
S-
talking about. I love
Yeah.
his work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, he uses green wood,
Yeah.
stone,
Yeah.
whatever, I don't know, jade maybe. I don't know my stones too well, but um
Um, well, I find like realism is not about detail. Like I've seen some of the realistic pieces I've seen can be minimal, like no details, but they have the
I've seen
form.
some of
That
those too. Yeah, the
that base
form.
form is they've just nailed it. Um, I use like I use so many. I use like I've got like hundreds of bear photos on my phone right now, and I've had some that I've been using for years because they've just got the right information that I need. So when I'm working on a piece, like I'll be using so many references just to get the information. And it's a little tedious, but it just helps that naturalism come out because I can't really. I'm not like I don't have a photographic memory or anything like that. I got to use references. So I just piece together all these different photos, just have them on my phone. And I think that's really served me well because I wanted to do more naturalistic, realistic stuff just to get
Hmm.
the information. I just have it right in front of me. Um, because it's easy. It's almost too easy sometimes to not look at a photo because you don't want to disrupt the flow. And I get that, but I find it does help, and it can make things actually go faster and not slower, and it's just you gotta find the right balance, right? Like, it depends on what you're trying to do too, like, some people don't use any photo references and their pieces are amazing. Um,
Yeah.
maybe I'll do some of that at some point too, where I don't really use references, but, it does help, and I use, like, a lot of photo references. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely gonna. I mean, every time I do one of these interviews, I get very inspired by the person I'm speaking with, and I attempt doing something in their style. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So maybe this is the push I need to finish that bear.
Yeah.
I have done smaller ones, and they came out okay.
Yeah.
No eyes, just very like minimalistic, as
Yeah.
you said. But I've used like rotary tools, and I have a Dremel in the back over there that I use with the wrong kind of bits.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this guy that I just showed you, I attempted to do with purely chisels and
Yeah.
gouges and knives. So I think that's another reason why I got a little tripped up because it's hard to get like that organic shape that you need. Um, at least for me, it's kind of hard to get that shape. The knives and the gouges leave a lot of faceted edges.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like the Dremel might, you know, lend well to rounding things over and shaping things a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So I got to
Well,
revisit it.
yeah, yeah, I hope you do, or whatever, like do or don't. I guess it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah,
I did want to mention too, like you said you're in the city and you do like the wildlife theme and the wildlife stuff, and I find too for me like one of my favorite subjects to carve is polar bears, and I've never seen a polar bear. I've just seen photos and videos,
that's
but
true.
I love carving polar bears, and I just like love the form of the polar bear, and for whatever reason, I kind of connected with that, and I do a lot of polar bears. Um, so that's not to say you can't sort of eh, like enjoy that beauty just through photographs or through videos or whatever.
That's
There's
true.
so much
Yeah.
beautiful photography out there, and connect with that part of our world, right? Like, so yeah, I feel like if you have a calling or a want to do that, just because you're in the city or whatever. It doesn't mean you can't do it. Although I will say, I went to a carving residency in Puerto Vallarta, and I was invited by another artist. And I went there, and I'm like, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna carve, a bear because I don't want to overcomplicate this. I'm there for like 1 week or 10 days, and when I got there, it was like I just couldn't get myself to do it, and it was like I ended up carving hands, like like figurative hands, and it was really interesting because the bear just did not feel right, and it was like
Hmm.
that question of how your environment influences the art that you're making, because you aren't necessarily just by yourself, you're surrounded in your reality. And like I just think it's an interesting question. I love to see what kind of art I make um, out of each studio. And so in that particular case, I didn't end up carving a bear because everything in my environment was like pointing me in a different direction. And it's like you're kind of in a collaboration with life and with your environment. And so I did these hands pieces, which felt way better to do, way more natural, way more of like, okay, this is like the right fit for this
Yeah.
moment in time. Um, so that's an interesting question too. Like, how does your environment influence what you're creating? And yeah,
Yeah, and I'm sure it definitely influences to some degree. Like I did an episode with Noah Head. He's a wood carver up in Manitoba, Canada.
yeah,
And his thing is Sasquatches.
okay,
That's he 99% of what he carves is Bigfoot. Um and all different styles and forms, and to him Bigfoot is his muse, he
cool,
said.
yeah,
And it's it's purely based on environment, I guess, because he said up there where he's from, Bigfoot is a very big deal. It's a big legend, almost not even a legend. He said it's, people talk about it like it's a real thing, and it just that's what inspires him, and it's the environment in which he's in.
yeah,
So it is funny to that your environment can kind of dictate to some degree what you
oh, for
carve and
sure,
what you do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah. So I want to tie it back a little bit to, obviously most of the listeners out there are wood carvers and everything. And, wood carving and stone carving, although they're the same, they're both drastically different. Um, and I think carving is carving, whether it's wood or stone or you're sculpting out of clay or whatever it is. And I feel like we can all learn things from one another. And the type of stones that you carve, now you said soapstone, marble, alabaster were the
uh-huh,
three that I heard. Maybe there was another one.
yeah.
Um, do you have a favorite that you tend to carve?
Uh, no, not really. I mean, those 3 have sort of emerged as the 3 main ones, and I think a lot of it has to just do with accessibility. Um, the main supplier I go through is in, uh, Vancouver. The company name was Carlos Stoneworks, but I think he's recently changed the name. But, he's a huge soapstone supplier in North America, and I've worked with him for years. And he has alabaster and soapstone. And, one of the previous suppliers, I don't think he's selling stone anymore, that I went through, ended up just having, uh, marble and lots of different other stones too. And so in the beginning, I was carving more varieties, but I ended up just sort of going with the alabaster and the marble and the soapstone because they're more readily available. So, and they all have their strengths and their things that maybe aren't great. Um, so I don't really have a favorite. I kind of alternate between them, and I always appreciate going back to soapstone after carving marble or alabaster and vice versa. They all have their unique characteristics. Um, But yeah, stone is a really interesting material to carve because it does have a lot of natural beauty. And it's so funny, the whole, you know, art business side of things, because when I first started selling my carvings, I feel like a lot of times people were buying the stone, they weren't really buying the carving. Like, it was like the stone had so much weight as a material, not necessarily like heaviness, but substance, so much value that people had sort of given it, that's what they were buying. They were buying a stone bear, but it almost didn't even have to look like a bear. That was almost somewhat secondary because the stone itself was so beautiful as a natural material that um, people were willing to pay a lot of money for it and have it in their homes, right? Because it's for
Yeah.
whatever reason. Um, so yeah, it's interesting that dynamic of why things sell. Um, and for me, I don't necessarily have a favorite, but I do really enjoy working with natural material, wood included. Like this piece that I'm doing now is just a piece of spruce that I had on my yard, and it's gorgeous, and I love it, and it gives me that same experience that I get when I carve stone. Um, Soapstone is and alabaster are pretty soft, and they're almost comparable to wood in terms of, obviously wood is softer, but you can carve them a lot quicker. When you move up to marble, it's a lot harder, and you almost need sort of different tools to carve it and to finish it, and a
Hmm.
little more elbow grease. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we have that same element in wood as well. There's certain woods that are softer and much easier to carve than other woods. So in the wood carving world, majority of what people carve is a wood called basswood, which is, these blocks that you see here.
I've heard that. Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
very lightweight. The grain structure is very tight and straight. There's not a lot of knots and issues in the wood. Very soft. Another common one is butternut. People say it's very soft. In my experience, I haven't found a piece that was soft to carve. It felt pretty hard. And then there's other woods too that you can carve, like maple and cherry and purple heart and ebony. You can go crazy carving all these woods, but you're gonna hate yourself carving it. I would assume it's comparable to, the soapstone would be like the basswood, and then the marble would be equivalent to like maple,
yeah,
where it's a really hard, dense wood to carve. You're not gonna really get much done carving with a knife in your hand with the maple. I mean, you can, but it's going to take forever. You would need some sort of power element to help you get through it.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's interesting to know that there's similarities between the two realms of
Here,
wood and stone.
I do have a technical question for you.
Sure.
What do you finish your like? What I'm just about finished this piece that I'm working on, and I'm sanding it right now. What am I gonna finish this with? How do I make it have a nice shine to it, like a nice finish that
Oof.
looks natural? Like, I've been hearing there's different waxes, and what is your how do you finish your pieces, or do you, like, even try and go for that look? Because it's obviously depends on what you're going for, right?
Depends on the look you're going for. So finishing is there's a million finishes you can choose from. Um, a popular finish amongst these like smaller handheld whittles um, is either tongue oil, like pure tongue oil.
Yeah,
Um, I use mineral oil because that's what I have on hand. It's not a hardening finish though.
right.
Um,
I
so
use tongue
it
oil on
will.
my soapstone. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I've heard people using mineral oil on stone as well. I don't know how well that keeps up, but yeah. And then, then there's the finishes that actually leave a film over the wood and seals the wood, which may be the route you want to go if you were looking for a higher polish look to it. Maybe you want to use like a wipe-on polyurethane or a shellac. I would avoid shellac. It kind of gives it a little bit of a tint to the wood.
Yeah, don't want that.
Um, some of some of these finishes will tint the wood,
Of course.
depending on what type of wood you're using.
Yeah.
You could also just highly sand and polish it
Right.
and
Okay.
go that route.
Yeah.
But in the finish world, I mean, there's hard wax oils that you can use. Like there, what is one of them? Odie's oil is, I believe, is a
Yeah.
that's I don't think that's a hard wax oil, but there's Odie's oil. Then there's Rubio monocoat, and then there's General Finishes. There's so many different avenues.
That's what it
Um,
feels like that when I'm looking into it. I'm like, man, what do I use here? But
there's Danish oil and walnut oil. Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
can really, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I feel
So
like I'm
that,
on the right track. I feel like I'm on the right track. That's kind of what I had in mind. Maybe.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I would say figure out the type of look you're going for. Like if you are going for a higher polished look, like similar to what your stone carvings look like, then I
Yeah.
would, narrow it down that way. Because if you were to use mineral oil, yeah, it would definitely get the grain to pop and look good, but it's not providing much of a sealer protective layer to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Well, I'll
yeah,
experiment.
most of us, because we paint our carvings, we apply some sort of oil-based finish, either mineral oil or tung oil, because when you go to paint it, the paint doesn't bleed. It doesn't get absorbed into the wood when
Yeah.
it's dry. So if
Okay.
you're trying to paint a hat red and not paint his face, if the wood is dry and you paint the hat red, that red can then bleed in towards where the face is,
Oh, okay.
because the wood's absorbing it, it's pulling it in.
Good to
The
know.
the oil the
Yeah.
oil creates that barrier effect and
Yeah.
helps. But yeah, finishing is one of those. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
You,
People are
you can
always asking me that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. What do you finish it with? But because I thought maybe you just highly polished them, sanded and
You
wet
do.
sanded them.
Yeah, you do. I've been finishing my soapstone pieces with beeswax, melting beeswax on there at the end.
Okay.
And that seems to
Yeah.
be okay. I've with the soapstone, I want to find something that creates more of a hard shell on it, but because it's you can actually scratch soapstone when it's fully polished. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I've just been using natural beeswax. Or for a lot of years, I could just use tung oil and just did a bunch of coats of that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
People now are doing things with like epoxy finishes.
yeah,
Um, I don't necessarily like those. It's very plasticky look
yeah,
to them, but it works in some
yeah,
applications, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah. And so that kind of brings me to another point. Like there's a lot of voids in stone, right? Like when you're chiseling into it, is there like a point where there's like wood has knots in it?
yeah.
Is there a similar aspect in stone when you cut into it and there's like this big void or
Occasionally,
crack? I guess a cracker might
crack,
be.
yeah, it depends on the stone. Some stone does have voids, but the soapstone not so much. But cracks, yes, I've 90%, maybe 99% of the stones I've carved have cracks in them. And I've just kind of from the beginning have gone with it. Like sometimes they create actually quite beautiful colors in your stone and give your
Sure.
piece like a unique look. And they're not structurally a problem. Like they're just sort of more surface based and you can just finish your piece and it actually looks really cool. But you learn like I won't carve my head where there's like a big crack, or and you can kind of tell like sometimes you can't, and then you get into the piece and a crack will start happening that you didn't see. Um, and you just try and you work with it. I use like that really thin, watery super glue with soapstone
Okay.
to bind any cracks if there's if it looks like it's going to crack. And I actually recently just repaired a marble piece that I had that broke because for a long time I just didn't. when pieces would break, I would just kind of move on because they didn't break very often. But I actually want to now incorporate like restoring pieces more, because I feel like it would be better for me, as an artist to be able to just to know how to do that so that, like when pieces break, they take them to professional restorers and they say, "Hey, can you restore this piece?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's restore it and put it back where, and put it back on display." So it is possible. So I've been experimenting with that more. So when a piece breaks, um, I'll use different glues, and pins and
Hmm.
actually even paint like to color match, just so that I
Yeah.
can repair these pieces so they're just as strong. And um, yeah, that's just something that I've been working on also recently. But yeah, the cracks you kind of work with it, right? Like, um, you just try and design your sculpture. So if you do see a crack, maybe for me, I'll include a base so it's not like a freestanding bear that's just on all four legs. Because if a crack runs maybe through the leg, it'll break off. But if it's got a base underneath it that's connecting everything, it'll be totally fine. So you just look at, where there might be a problem, and if there is, and you kind of design your piece according to that. And sometimes you have to change on the fly.
Hmm.
Because the crack goes in a different direction that you didn't think. But for the most part, 99% of the pieces I carve have those flaws and those cracks. And lots of the times they actually make the piece even, I don't know, wouldn't say more beautiful, but just different.
Yeah, it
And
gives
they're,
it a
yeah,
distinct look.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I'm yeah, I mean, I have so many questions about stone carving. I don't even know where to start and begin, but um yeah, I mean, the weight of your carvings also must come into play as well. That has to be a big chunk of material to maneuver around.
It is, but it's
Um,
also nice because, with this wood carving I'm doing, the tools knock it around a little bit. When you got a little piece of stone, it just sits there and you can carve on it and you don't have to hold it. You don't have to clamp it. So that's
I,
the benefit of the weight.
I was gonna say that you were saying how earlier the skills are somewhat transferable. I was gonna say the pressure of how you are digging into the material versus the stone and the wood is going to be very drastic because you
Yeah.
can't put as much pressure on the tool on the wood like you would of the stone
Well,
because
I mean,
you'll
like
really gouge
anything,
into the wood.
yeah. Yeah. This wood is very sensitive. Soapstone is though to the pressure that you're putting on. It's very buttery almost. Um, But for me, it's like that, just that awareness, whether it's wood or whatever you're carving, you don't want to force it, right? So if I
Hmm.
start rushing, I'm going to force the material and it's going to break or I'm going to make a
Yeah,
mistake. So for me, that's my baseline, I guess, right? You just don't force it and you can kind of feel that in whatever material you're working with. Of course, there's that learning curve, um, what you can and cannot do. And yeah, um, but yeah, it is different in terms of the pressures for sure.
yeah. Now, what kind of tools are you working with mostly? Carving the stone.
Yeah, well, I touched on it a bit, like diamond blades mostly and diamond burrs. I've actually been using some of the sort of the generic diamond burrs that I got off of Amazon, um, for this wood carving. It doesn't really remove a lot of material, but I think there's probably different applications where they would come in really handy. Just the generic ones
Hmm.
that are you can get online. Um, but yeah, it's mostly just sort of I've tried to find products that I can buy on Amazon because a lot of people ask me, "Where do you get your tools?" And I love to be able to say, "Here's the link. You can go get it." Like,
Mm,
because it's
sure. Yeah.
tricky. Some of the more robust diamond burrs, there's not a lot of places in Canada or North America that have them. You can go to Italy and get them, but then you're dealing with a website in Italian or, and it's tricky.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's basically just like diamond blades and diamond burrs and yeah, I think that's mostly it. Yeah, and then the pneumatic chisel, which
Gotcha.
I
Yeah.
use occasionally too on marble.
Yeah. So the stone set that I have is a hand, mallet
Yeah,
set. It looks like a fork, it has like four or
yeah,
five little prongs, and then I have like a one that comes to a point. And I guess
yeah.
you're supposed to remove
If
bigger chunks out of
you
that
start with that
one.
one. Yeah,
That's the one you start with, the roughing
it's
out. And then I have a third one and I can't remember.
probably just flat.
It's flat. Yeah.
Oh,
Um it's flat. So many years ago there was an art store in my neighborhood. They closed down now, but they would sell chunks of stone, and so I bought the set of chisels, and I bought I think two chunks of soapstone, and I bought an alabaster stone.
yeah,
I wanted a marble, but they only had like gigantic pieces and they were really expensive. And I was like, nah, no way I'm buying that.
yeah,
But so with the soapstone, I made a few things out of it. One chunk of it broke off. It was a really small piece, and I was like, I didn't want to throw it away, so I made like a little heart out of it, and I gave it to my girlfriend. And it was nice to shape it and sand it. It was very low effort type of carving. So that was kind of fun being able to do something very simple and easy. And then I don't know where this idea came from, but I took a chunk of the soapstone and I got the brilliant idea of attaching it to my lathe and turning a bowl out of it, which was by far the scariest thing I've ever done on my lathe because I hot glued it to a plate mounted to the lathe and I completely obliterated my chisel. I had a scraper
yeah.
um, lathe tool that I used for it, and I destroyed that tool. It took me a long time to fix it, um, but I powered through, and I turned a little pot
Hey, that's pretty
out
cool.
of. Yeah, I'll send you the picture. It was really
Okay.
cool, and I still have it. And I finished that one with mineral oil and beeswax,
Yep.
actually.
Yep.
A combination. And then I do have it somewhere, but the alabaster one, I attempted a bear head,
Oh yeah.
um, and I never finished it.
Yeah.
I have the I have the rough shape, I have the ears and the flat face and the nose all roughed out, and it was just so hard to carve, and with that hand,
Yeah.
it was taking forever, and I gave up on that. But I do have it. It's underneath my workbench somewhere.
I use rasps a lot actually. Italian rasp.
Yeah, so I have some rasps. They're not the right kind, I guess. They're the wood ones.
Yeah. They'll work, but probably the Italian ones for stone are probably the best that there are. Oh yeah, there you go. That's alabaster.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I thought it was.
It could be.
Ma-
It just usually it's. I mean, alabaster comes in all different kind of colors, so it could be for sure. Hey, that's a good start. Look at that.
Yeah, but it's heavy, and yeah, I just didn't know where to go
It
from
looked kind of
from
cool like
this.
that, actually, with the
Yeah,
little natural parts sticking out there.
yeah, so there's
Yeah,
a natural part there, and then in the back,
yeah,
it slants. So I thought it was like a cool little sculpture piece, but
it is. You can
uh,
just put it down on your. Yeah,
yeah, and then I remember what I was doing. I was flattening the bottom because it was really jagged,
yeah,
and I had a belt grinder, and it took forever to flatten it, and it was just this is a heavy piece, man.
yeah,
But yeah, so the idea of carving bears for me has been there for a while. But yeah, a lot of times I attempt things and then give up when I get too frustrated,
yeah.
or
Well,
if
I'm
I
telling
if I
you.
think it's taking too much time.
Well, that's one of the challenges of this world, I think, because I have the same thing. Like I started doing this wood carving of this bear, and it was so the competition um, was you would get your epoxy and you would get your carving tools from Kutzall, and the epoxy was from Total Boat, which is what BM Sculptures uses,
Mm,
with
yeah.
these projects. So I've been having this idea because I've been wanting to use epoxy and soapstone just with all my offcuts, and so I could recarve these pieces, which I want to do. And then when I moved here, back home, got onto this property, there's like giant log piles and there's wood all around me. And I'm like, why am I not carving this? Why am I getting my material from Brazil when I have all this natural material around me? So I've been wanting to carve wood. And, but the process, the learning curve, right? It's like, well, I don't have time to do that. I can't spend the time at R&D, right? Research and development, because artists, it's like you get your thing that's working and you get some kind of momentum with it, and to stop and learn, people ask, why is art so expensive? Well, to learn how to do these things takes so much time.
Hmm.
Learning how to do the epoxy and even learning how to switch the tools and carve with wood, there is a learning curve. This bear is definitely taking me a lot longer than my soapstone bears, which I've got streamlined. um, and part of me wanted to give up a few times, but because I won this competition and I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna like finish this piece. It's been good as a accountability point to get it done, because now I can see the end of this one piece that I'm working on, and I got another one that I'm doing. And I'm so happy that I followed through with it, because once I get that under my belt, I'll know that process. It'll just make it so that much easier the next time. Um, and it's kind of,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say it's a shame, but like in this world, it's like so fast paced that we can't slow down and experiment, because that is part of the creative process. And I feel like that's like the essence of it in a way, is that experimentation, or a part of it is that experimentation. And so I have to practice, for me, like realizing that I do have time, and that me telling myself that I can't do it, I don't have time, is actually more just my anxiety talking than actual truth. And I have to remind myself that. My wife reminds me of that daily, so I should just listen to her
Hmm.
more. Um, but yeah, the research and development, the time it takes to learn something new, is definitely an investment. And it's sometimes hard to get into new things because of it. But I'm glad I sort of got into open the door to wood carving for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did too. And, congratulations on that win. I was following when Blake posted it and Total Boat and all that, and it was interesting to see. I think there's more rounds to it, isn't there?
Yeah, there's
Like
just a round where if you wanted to join in as a contestant and show a project that you did from those materials, then the winner is going to receive, I think, some, like a gift card or something to the Total Boat and to
some
Cut Off to
tools.
get some
That's
tools.
that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Um,
Yeah, no, it was well deserved. Your work is fantastic, and yeah, it must have been pretty cool to experiment with some new things and
yeah.
actually win.
I don't know if I would have done it if I didn't win that, because it was like everything I kind of wanted to do all just wrapped into one kind of thing, and I was like, okay, let me just put my submission in. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, it was you said something before how trying something new, it takes you a little bit longer because the learning curve. And um Blake from BM, he recently started carving some stone, and he got a marble piece, and he carved like a woman figure
I saw it.
out of it,
Yeah.
which he's done women figures before out of wood and epoxy, but he tried this epoxy marble woman, and it was a great video. And then at the I think it was either another video or at the end of that video, so he carves these dinosaur teeth.
I saw that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he sells, like, them as offcuts, and he carves them out of wood. And I guess for an experiment, he decided to test how long each one took him.
Yeah.
And I think he knocked out the wood one in like 30 minutes
Yeah.
or less or something. And then the marble one took him 4 hours.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that. because there's a difference in material, difference in how it sands and how it polishes and things like that. So
I feel
yeah,
like
there's
that
definitely a
video
learning curve.
yeah, I feel like that video that he did really wa like, motivated me to get into wood carving because I'm like,
Oh, cool.
"Here is this guy, he's using all these materials. I've wanted to do stone and epoxy for 10 years, and I've had
Hmm.
it as an idea, and I have but ideas are a dime a dozen, right? Like, you have to just do them. And here he is
Yeah.
doing this epoxy and marble. I'm like, if he's doing it, I'm gonna do it. And so it really inspired me to even submit to the Cutsall thing for the Cutsall and Total Boat Challenge, the pour and carve because I was like, I want to try some new materials. This guy's trying all sorts of materials. He's such a master at all using different materials. And so it was
Yeah.
actually a very inspiring video for me, that one in particular, to start to be like, get off your butt, Andrew, and like try this stuff that you've been wanting to do. And I'm really glad I did because I am thoroughly enjoying carving this piece of wood. Like it's just been such a fun process, even though it's been challenging. But I'm just like, wow, this is really cool. And there's so many different potentials that I can see opening up from it. So glad I did
Yeah.
it.
And sometimes you just need to break that seal
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
that break through that barrier and get through it. And
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
Kind of like
no,
when you
that's
started
really
the
cool.
podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about it before we started and just, I had an idea to do it. And I just said, just go and do it. Let me just get it up and running. And yeah. And so far it's been fun. It's been so much fun.
And
I've
how
been
many
meeting.
did you say you did that first take? How many?
So my first episode I've recorded about 10 times, and the one that you see is the best version, which to me is still pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But like I said, I kept recording them and listening to them, and I was playing them back and I was just like they're not getting any better. I was getting self-conscious about it,
Right.
and like maybe one was slightly better than the other, and I was nitpicking little. I said that weird, or I said this weird, or I looked
Yeah. Yeah.
something was in the background, or whatever it is, and I was like, I was almost finding ways to talk myself out of doing it.
Yeah.
So I just finally said, pick one and post it, and just don't look past and work on the next one,
Yeah.
because every time you do something, it's going to get better. You're going to improve, just like carving or
Yeah.
art. Your first one's always going to be terrible,
Yeah.
but then your second one, your third one, they still might be terrible, but there's little minuscule elements of it getting better.
Yeah.
And I'm actually seeing that with these episodes. Each episode is getting better. I feel like I'm getting more into the rhythm and into the stride. And there's still a lot of elements I play back, and I'm like, oh man, that's
Yeah.
kind of weird. But I'm starting to like let that roll off my shoulders a little bit more and not care as much. And
Yeah. I feel like art is a gift. It's a gift to yourself. It's a kindness that you're doing for yourself. It's like the ultimate act of self-love is creating art because we're so judgmental. And I mean when I mean art, also mean a podcast, being creative.
mhm,
We're so judgmental and I feel like a lot of people don't ever put themselves out there or or create or express something, put it out there because they're so judgmental. And
yeah,
but the world needs that because we need a world of people that really are kind to themselves. And I feel like any act of art that you put out there is a kindness you're doing to yourself. And that just nurtures what we're supposed to be here nurturing. So yeah, I think that letting go of all those judgments, right? All those things that you think, oh, this is not right. This is the nitpicking. And it's like, let's just put some stuff out there and this is who we are and go for it.
yeah. And I'm not sure what the stone carving community is like, but if it's anything like the wood carving community is amazing. I mean, yeah, you have your moments with certain people here and there, but they're far and few between. Um, it's just a loving and caring and supportive community. Everyone is rooting for each other and offering words of wisdom and tips and advice and how to improve, and this looks great and that looks cool. How'd you do this? Where can I learn how to do that? So it really is a very forgiving community, I would say. So
That's a good way to
if
put it.
there's if they're seeing the mistakes that you're making, they don't really care. They just like the content of wood carving and
Yeah.
that hobby of it, so I'm sure there's plenty of things that people see and like, oh, that was stupid or that's, but I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in the world, if it's in front of your face, behind your back, people are going to say things, but 99% of it has been all positive and great feedback. And I'm sure there'll be a day where it comes where there's something negative is said and it hits me, and I'll deal with it then. But
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I can just stay true to the fact that the community is supportive and is behind me and behind everyone else, that's
Yeah.
all that really kind of matters.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, anytime you're putting anything out into the world, that takes a lot of courage. So I think that
yeah,
just alone by itself, it doesn't matter what it looks like. The fact that you've done it is the achievement, and
yeah,
then you can learn as you go.
yeah. And now is this the stone community very similar in that aspect? I mean,
Yeah, I would say so. I feel like Um, there's lots of different Facebook groups and stuff where, someone will post, "Oh, how do I do this and that?" And then you just get the list. They're great resources because you just go there and you get the list of, well, this is what I did, this is what I used. And I have some carvers too who I've met over the years. And the thing about them is they're so few and far between that, when I reach out and I ask a carver like a question, I'll get a detailed answer and it's just like there's this camaraderie because there's not a lot of us out doing it. And it's like,
yeah,
so I had
they want
one
someone to talk to about it.
that's it really. Yeah. Um but I had one gemstone carver, Lyle Sopel, and he's an amazing artist. He does these beautiful, intricate wildlife pieces with gemstones. And he invited me one time to just come and look at his studio, and he just showed me around. And he was in the area that I was in, and he'd been doing it for 30 years, maybe longer. And so I got to go and just like walk through his studio, and he just showed me his tools and his setup, and I just got to
Oh, that's
chat
great.
with him about, yeah, and it was awesome. So anytime um anytime you can have an opportunity to do something like that, that's great. Maybe I'll add two here. Um I put together a stone carving course actually, and it's an introduction to bear carving. Maybe I'll just mention
Awesome.
it here. I don't really promote it these days. Like I, it took me probably 2 years because I just filmed my entire process of one of my small bears and worked on the course, and then didn't do it for a while, and then went back and worked a little more. It took about 2 years to finally get it done. Um, so that's a resource too for anyone wanting to sort of learn how to get started with soapstone carving in particular. Um, but you can also just ask me questions because I usually I'll just say exactly what I've done anyway. So,
You'll just
but
give it out
worth
for free.
mentioning, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And if anyone is interested in checking that out, they should. Um, I might check it out too, because whether it's stone or wood, it's the information is still there. The
Yeah.
shape and the dimension of it, and
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I
I'll give you access. You had me on your podcast, so I can give you free
no,
access to it. Yeah.
I appreciate that. But now, before we wrap up, I just want to know who your biggest inspirations are. It could be carving, it could be art, it could be
Mhm.
whatever realm it is. Who has inspired you the most to do what you do?
Um, that's a good question. That is a really good question because
It's a tough, tough
I've
one.
heard that question asked so many times on podcasts, and this is my first podcast, by the way. So when that question is
Oh,
finally asked to me, what's interesting is the thing that came up is that I'm not thinking about artists because so there's the artistic influences, but what inspired me to want to be an artist and to do that, I think it's just people who really go for what they want and who are really driven in whatever it is. Like, I was a big hockey guy when I was growing up, and I always liked Wayne Gretzky or the top
Hmm.
athletes, people who are inspired to do their best. And as I've gotten older too, not just people that are skilled, but people who are that want to be better people and better humans too. And that inspires me. And that's sort of part of, I would say, my mission and purpose as an artist. It's not to be an artist and that's all I'm doing, but to actually be a good person too and create this sort of creative environment and try and inspire people that way, not just through my art, but so yeah, anyone that's sort of wanting to just be a better human, I guess that inspires me.
Oh, that's a great answer. Yeah, I think everyone can benefit from wanting to be better and just be a better person. There's so much, there's a lot of horrible things in the world. So I think if people just strive for being a better version of themselves, that's the best.
Yeah, and art has been a big part of that process for me, that self-development and self-improvement, and I'm always reflecting on the pieces that I'm doing and how they reflect on me and where I'm at in my own life and because they're really there's no difference. The art that I make is very much just a reflection of who I am or aspects of who I am. And so it's almost like a mirror. Every piece that I do is a mirror. And I finish the piece and I look at that mirror and I see who I am. And then I'm like, oh, I could do this better, or I could be more refined over here, you know, in this area, and that doesn't mean that necessarily it's just about the art. Maybe that means, oh, maybe Andrew, you should get up at 7 a.m. instead of sleeping in till whatever, right? And develop discipline over here. And that's you're gonna develop, that's gonna show through in your art in some way. So yeah, the art and the developing and the refinement of the art is also just a refinement of myself as well. And it's kind of like a mirror process. Um, yeah.
Really cool. Andrew, it was really great speaking with you and getting to learn more about your process and stone carving. If people want to follow your work and see what you do or buy something, where can they follow you?
Andrew Gable art is my handle, like everywhere. I think TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. AndrewGableArt.com is my website. So that's just yep, that's where they can find me.
Awesome. Yeah, and if all of you like this episode, please make sure to follow the show and subscribe for future conversations. I hope to have on more different types of carvers, just like Andrew, and learn more about this world of carving. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks
Cheers.
again, Andrew.